Most people are fighting the wrong enemy. They wake up, pour their coffee, look at the tightening math in their checking account, and tell themselves a very specific lie. I just need to make more money. If I can just get my income up, this pressure will finally stop. But the truth is far quieter and far more brutal. The mechanism quietly ruining the lives of ordinary, hardworking people is not a lack of income. It is the invisible cost of fragility. It is the money they bleed out every single month trying to purchase the illusion of stability rather than building the actual structure of it. I have watched men and women work 50, 60 hours a week for decades. They do the heavy lifting. They put in the overtime. They don't complain. And yet, at 55 years old, they are one blown transmission or one bad medical diagnosis away from a total financial wipeout. They are not stupid. They are not lazy. But they are caught in a pressure system that extracts a penalty from them every time they try to look like they are getting ahead. They are paying what we might call the fragility tax. Today, we are going to walk through the mechanisms of that tax. We are going to look at the exact places where ordinary people quietly sabotage their own freedom. This is not about feeling guilty for buying a cup of coffee. This is about understanding the massive structural leaks that keep the working and middle class exhausted, anxious, and permanently stuck on the wheel. If you are tired of feeling like your effort is evaporating into thin air, pull up a chair. It is time to look at the engine of your own frustration. There is a moment in a person's life when they finally get a little bit of breathing room. Maybe it's a promotion. Maybe it's a stretch of solid overtime. For the first time in years, the checking account doesn't look like a crime scene. And what is the first thing the culture tells them to do to celebrate? Go down to the dealership and sign a piece of paper for a brand new vehicle. This is one of the most devastating financial illusions we have normalized. You walk onto the lot, the car smells like success, the salesman treats you with respect. For a couple of hours, you feel like you have finally arrived. You sign the financing agreement, take the keys, and drive off the lot. In the time it takes you to drive from the dealership to your driveway, that vehicle has lost up to 20% of its value. Let that sink in. You just traded your future hours, your sweat, and your peace of mind to acquire a heavy piece of machinery that begins dissolving your wealth the second the tires hit the pavement. Within 5 years, that car will have lost 60% of its value, but you are still making payments on the original price plus interest. Most people think they are buying reliable transportation. They aren't. They are buying an emotional anesthetic. They are financing a depreciating liability at 8% interest to prove to people at a red light that they are not failing at life. The people who actually build unshakable wealth, the ones who sleep soundly at night, look at cars completely differently. They do not view a vehicle as an extension of their ego. They view it as a utility. They let someone else take that initial 30% hit. They buy a solid, reliable 3-year-old vehicle and they drive it until the wheels fall off. Every dollar you do not send to a car finance company is a dollar that stays in your own wall. Stop financing your own depreciation. A shiny hood ornament is a terrible substitute for financial peace. It doesn't stop in the driveway. The desire to look fine while feeling squeezed leaks into the closet, the watch on your wrist, and the phone in your pocket. There is a strange, painful irony in the modern economy. The people who can least afford luxury goods are often the ones who feel the most pressure to buy them. You see it every day. A guy making $40,000 a year wearing a $200 t-shirt with a designer logo plastered across the chest. A woman terrified of her rent check carrying a bag that cost more than her monthly groceries. Why do we do this? Again, it is not stupidity, it is psychology. When your foundational life feels chaotic, when you feel like you have no control over your wages, inflation, or your future, you try to assert control over your appearance. You buy the premium brand because for a brief second, handing over that credit card makes you feel powerful. But it is counterfeit wealth. You are paying a massive premium just to be a walking billboard for a European conglomerate that doesn't know you exist. You are taking the hard-earned margin of your life, the few extra dollars you managed to scrape together, and handing it over to look like someone you are not. Look at the people who have held on to money for generations. You will rarely see them draped in massive logos. They might wear a $20 watch. They might use a phone that is 4 generations old. Why? Because they do not need a piece of cotton or a piece of glass to validate their existence. Their security is structural, not visual. If you are paying 10 times the price for an item solely because of the brand name attached to it, you are not buying quality. You are financing your own insecurity, and the market is more than happy to let you bleed yourself dry to look successful while you slowly go broke. True dignity is walking into a room in a $10 shirt knowing you owe absolutely nothing to the people sitting across from you. Now let's talk about the ultimate American holy grail, the house. For 70 years, we have been told that buying a house is the undisputed, unquestionable path to adulthood and wealth. And so the moment a young family scrapes together a tiny down payment, they sprint to the bank, max out their approval limit, and buy the biggest house the underwriter will let them squeak into. They move in, they post the picture with the keys, everyone claps, and then the furnace breaks. Then the property taxes get reassessed, then the roof starts leaking. Suddenly, the asset they thought would set them free has become a concrete anchor tied around their neck. There is nothing inherently wrong with owning a home. But buying a house with massive debt, zero emergency fund, and no margin for maintenance is a trap that destroys middle-class families. When you put every single dollar of your liquidity into a down payment, you lose your shock absorbers. You become fragile. If you rent and the water heater blows, you make a phone call. If you own and the water heater blows, you put $1,000 on a credit card at 24% interest. People convince themselves that paying rent is throwing money away. That is a dangerous half-truth. Rent is the maximum you will pay for housing in a given month. A mortgage is the minimum you will pay. The people who actually build lasting stability do not rush into a 30-year debt sentence just to satisfy a cultural expectation. They are willing to rent. They are willing to stay flexible. They build up cash. They build up actual investments. And when they do buy a home, they buy it with a massive cushion of safety. A house only feels like a castle when you actually have the cash flow to defend it. If you are losing sleep over the mortgage payment, you don't own the house owns you. The pressure of living like this, the depreciating car, the counterfeit wealth, the heavy mortgage, creates an incredible amount of internal friction. You wake up tired, you go to work tired, you come home tired, and eventually the pressure cooker needs a release valve. This brings us to the tragedy of the financed escape, the extravagant put it on the plastic vacation. The culture tells you that you deserve a break. You see the pictures of the resorts, the beaches, the perfectly plated dinners. Your brain, desperate for a hit of dopamine and an exit from the daily grind, rationalizes the expense. We'll figure it out when we get back. We just need to get away. So you book the flights, you swipe the card. For 7 days, you live like royalty. You drink the umbrella drinks. You forget about the commute. But vacations end. And when you come back, the life you were trying to escape is still waiting for you. Except now, it is heavier. Now the stress of your job is compounded by the knowledge that you have just added $5,000 of consumer debt to your shoulders. You paid for a temporary exit, and the price was making your permanent reality even harder to endure. This is the cruelty of emotional spending. You are using the money you don't have to buy a temporary reprieve from the life you haven't fixed. It takes a tremendous amount of discipline to look at your family and say, we are not getting on an airplane this year. We are going to drive to the state park, we are going to pack a cooler, and we are going to use that vacation money to wipe out this credit card debt. It isn't glamorous, it won't get you any likes on the internet, but it is how you build a life you do not need to constantly escape from. A vacation funded by high-interest debt is not a reward. It is a hostage negotiation with your future self, and you are always the one who loses. While the vacations are the big dramatic leaks, the quiet erosion of your wealth happens in the background, $5 and $10 at a time. Let's look at the gym memberships. Millions of people sign up for a gym on January 1st. They buy the shoes, they get the scan card, they feel a surge of motivation. By March, 70% of them have stopped going, but they don't cancel the membership. Why? Because canceling the membership means admitting defeat. As long as that $40 is drafted out of their checking account every month, they can tell themselves that they are still the kind of person who goes to the gym. They are paying a monthly subscription fee for their own idealized self-image. The fitness industry, just like the streaming industry, is built on the mathematics of apathy. They rely on the fact that you will be too tired, too busy, or too ashamed to cancel a service you never use. This applies to the premium cable packages, the software subscriptions you forgot about, the diet apps you haven't opened in 6 months. It is the ghost of your aspirations, draining your actual resources. You cannot buy discipline. You cannot purchase a work ethic by subscribing to a service. There are people who get into the best shape of their lives doing push-ups in a garage and running in a pair of cheap sneakers. The equipment doesn't do the work. The membership doesn't do the work. Go through your bank statements. Look at the recurring charges. Every single one of them that you do not actively, ruthlessly use is a leak in your boat. Cut them. It might sting your ego for 5 minutes to admit you aren't going to use that service, but that sting is the feeling of reality returning. Accept where you are, stop paying for the ghost of who you wish you were, and start doing the actual work for free. When the slow, grinding reality of this financial structure sets in, a very dangerous mechanism activates in the human brain. When the math of your daily life feels entirely rigged against you, you stop looking for a strategy and you start looking for a miracle. This is why people who are struggling financially are the primary targets for the gambling industry, the lottery system, and the endless parade of get-rich-quick schemes. If you have a solid income, a paid-off house, and a healthy retirement account, you don't buy scratch-off tickets expecting them to change your life. You might buy one for a joke. But if you are 50 years old, drowning in debt, and terrified of the future, that piece of cardboard starts to look like a life raft. Gambling is a tax on desperation. Whether it is a slot machine, a sports betting app, or a volatile cryptocurrency that some kid on the internet promises will go to the moon, the underlying psychology is the same. It is the belief that steady, disciplined effort is no longer enough to save you, so you must rely on luck. The system knows this. The machines are engineered by psychologists to keep you pulling the lever. They give you the near misses, they give you the flashing lights, they hijack your ambition and turn it into bankruptcy. You have to look at this with cold, dead eyes. Luck is not a financial strategy. Every time you throw money at a game of chance hoping for a shortcut, you are enriching an institution that actively profits from your misery. You are handing over your leverage. The people who win in the long game do not rely on luck, they rely on compound interest. They rely on eliminating friction. They rely on the slow, unsexy, unbreakable laws of mathematics. It takes longer, it is profoundly boring. But unlike the lottery, it actually works. Finally, we have to talk about how we spend our most irrecoverable asset, time. If you look at the habits of people who remain stuck in the lower middle class pressure cooker, you will find an overwhelming consumption of television, streaming services, and video games. Again, this is not because they are inherently lazy. It is a coping mechanism. When you spend 8 or 10 hours a day taking orders, dealing with difficult customers, and feeling like a cog in a machine, your brain craves total shutdown. You come home, you fall onto the couch, and you turn on a screen to numb the lingering anxiety of your reality. But there is a devastating double cost to this habit. First, you are paying for the privilege of being distracted. The subscriptions, the upgraded consoles, the high-speed internet packages, they add up. Second, and far more importantly, you are surrendering the only window of time you have to actually change your trajectory. The hours between 6 in the evening and 10 at night are the battleground where your future is decided. That is the time when you could be reading, learning a new skill, figuring out a side income, or simply organizing your chaotic finances. If you spend 4 hours a night watching someone else's fictional life on a screen, you are actively participating in the stagnation of your own. The people who break out of the cycle do not use their free time to numb themselves. They use it to build. They read books that challenge their mental models. They study how money actually works. They fix the leaky faucet themselves instead of paying a plumber. You cannot afford to check out of your own life. The screen is a pacifier. Spit it out. So, where does this leave us? We have looked at the engine. The cars that depreciate, the brands that fake wealth, the houses that act as anchors, the vacations that finance an escape, the subscriptions that feed guilt, the gambling that exploits desperation, the screens that numb the pain. When you strip it all away, you realize that the system is not broken. It is functioning exactly as it was designed. It is designed to take the wages of ordinary people and slowly siphon them upward through interest, depreciation, and consumer desire. But you do not have to participate. You can step off the wheel, but it requires a fundamentally different mental model. You have to stop wanting to look successful and start wanting to be bulletproof. It means making peace with being the guy driving the 10-year-old truck with a faded paint job, knowing full well that you have a year of living expenses sitting in cash. It means looking at a credit card offer and feeling nothing but a profound, quiet disgust. It means building a life that is so structurally sound, so devoid of unnecessary friction, that you do not need to finance a vacation to escape it. The reward for this kind of discipline is not necessarily a mansion or a yacht. The reward is dignity. It is the dignity of not panicking when the economy dips. It is the dignity of not having to swallow your pride and ask family for a loan because your car broke down. It is the quiet, unbreakable self-respect of a man or a woman who knows exactly where they stand and knows that their foundation is solid rock. Life is going to throw heavy things at you. The medical bills will come, the layoffs will happen, the economy will shift. You cannot control the weather, but you can control the house you build. Stop buying the illusion. Stop financing your own exhaustion. Start building the structure.